Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the dramatic structure of, well, one of the most impactful sequences ever put to film, the crucifixion. We're going to take a really objective, analytical look at how this narrative is built literally from the ground up. We'll track the pacing, the dialogue, the visual storytelling, and really see how it shifts from this chaotic physical action to a profound, almost cosmic resolution. All right, let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. The scene immediately hooks us with this incredible, jarring contrast. Amidst all the brutal, chaotic reality of the cross being raised, the protagonist utters this incredibly powerful opening line. Instead of a cry of pain or a shout for vengeance, which, let's be honest, we'd all naturally expect in a moment of such extreme physical trauma, we hear this stunning plea, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It's wild, right? This instantly establishes the protagonist's core character. It sets this tone of radical grace right at the inciting incident. By giving us this line first, the filmmakers are telling us, hey, focus here. They center the narrative not on the violence itself, but on the protagonist's extraordinary response to it.
Section 1. The Crucifixion and Forgiveness. Let's look at the initial physical descent.
So, to truly understand the pacing here, let's map out the chronological flow of the scene. The sequence escalates so meticulously. It starts with the visceral, very grounded action of raising the cross. Then, shortly after, the focus moves down to the foot of the cross, where soldiers coldly cast lots for his tunic. And then, notice how the narrative scope just widens dramatically? Total darkness covers the earth from noon all the way to 3 p.m., culminating in the precise moment the protagonist yields his spirit. This roadmap shows us a really clear intentional trajectory. We are moving from immediate, gritty human cruelty straight into massive environmental shifts. Now let's zoom in a bit closer on the specific physical actions happening around the cross. The narrative notes two key objective realities happening at the exact same time. First, the protagonist is crucified between two thieves. This is a very specific staging choice, explicitly framed as fulfilling an ancient prophecy written hundreds of years prior. Second, right below all this suffering, the soldiers are treating his remaining earthly clothes as a literal game of chance. They're rolling dice for his tunic, casually declaring, "You won." I mean, think about that. This mundane, trivial gambling happening right beneath a literal life and death struggle creates this profound dramatic irony. It really highlights the total apathy, the complete indifference of the executioners when you compare it to the monumental, historic event happening right above their heads.
Section 2. The Mockery and the Sign. We're going to explore some visual irony here.
And this brilliantly illustrates the scene's use of visual irony. There's text placed on a wooden sign directly above his head that reads, "This is the King of the Jews." Now, this is a title of supreme sovereign authority, right? Yet here it is displayed purely as a taunt in a moment of ultimate physical vulnerability. The stark, dramatic juxtaposition between that lofty royal title on the sign and the painful, battered reality of the man on the cross is just a classic narrative technique. It's used to deepen our empathy for the character while simultaneously establishing the underlying political tensions that actually led to this execution in the first place.
Right below that mocking sign, the crowd starts voicing their demands. They're shouting things like, "He saved others, let him save himself," or "Come down from that cross and do one of your miracles." The transcript heavily emphasizes the crowd's expectations of what a powerful, victorious Messiah should look like. To them, he should be putting on a display of forceful dominance and self-preservation. By weaponizing his past miracles against him in these taunts, the narrative dramatically cranks up the tension. The suspense here is built entirely on friction. He has the power to stop this, so why doesn't he?
Section 3. The Dialogue of the Thieves. This is the intimate climax.
Now, what's really interesting about this framing is how the two thieves flanking the protagonist represent this complete dichotomy of humanity's reaction to the unfolding event. Over on the left, we've got the mocking thief. He echoes the angry crowd, aggressively demanding to be saved from his physical pain, saying, "If you are the Messiah, save yourself and save us." But then on the right, the reverent thief completely flips the script. He accepts his punishment as just, actually rebukes the other thief, and simply asks for spiritual grace. "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." It's just a brilliant narrative device. It compresses the entire human spectrum, from cynical rejection to humble belief, into a single agonizing conversation. In response to that reverent thief, the protagonist delivers one of the absolute most vital lines of the script. "I promise you that today you will be in paradise with me." Let's take a second and think about why this matters. Despite the immense public humiliation, the taunting crowd, and all the physical torture we've just talked about, this intimate, quietly powerful promise serves as the true emotional anchor of the scene. It completely resolves the interpersonal tension on the cross. Plus, it signals to the audience that the narrative's central theme of redemption is actively being fulfilled, even and maybe especially in its absolute darkest, most helpless moment.
Finally, Section 4. Darkness, Death, and Revelation. Let's look at the cosmic shifts.
Notice how the scope of our story abruptly changes here. We pivot sharply from the intimate human dialogue we just witnessed to a rapid sequential climax of physical phenomena. Step 1, an unnatural total darkness falls over the entire earth from noon until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Step 2, the veil of the temple, which is this massive physical and symbolic barrier separating humanity from the divine, just tears completely in half. Step 3, Jesus yields his spirit. The narrative is visually signaling to us that this is not just some localized historical execution. No, this has universal, earth-shattering consequences. These environmental changes act as a really powerful visual crescendo, perfectly mirroring the sheer spiritual weight of the protagonist's death.
So the crucial point is found right here in the protagonist's final words. As the darkness peaks and the veil tears, he says, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Unlike the violent chaos surrounding him, his end is marked by complete, conscious surrender. He doesn't simply fade away, and he doesn't have his life forcefully taken from him in his final breath. He actively and peacefully releases his spirit. This brings the character arc of this whole sequence to a definitive, poetic close. It perfectly reflects the deliberate grace and control he showed at the very beginning of the ordeal, when he asked for forgiveness for his executioners.
The sequence leaves us with a truly profound narrative inversion. The captain of the Roman soldiers, a guy who is literally tasked with overseeing this brutal execution, witnesses the darkness, the supernatural events, and this uniquely peaceful death, and he concludes the scene by giving glory to God, stating, "Truly, this man was a just man." The very authority figures who carried out the death sentence are the ones who ultimately recognize his innocence and profound identity. This radical shift from public mockery to profound realization acts as the final thematic stamp on the story, but it leaves us with a lingering question to think about. If the very authorities who executed him were the first to recognize his innocence, how does that reframe the entire concept of power and authority in narrative storytelling? Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing the stories around you, and I'll catch you next time.